This is that relatable video that you've been searching for. Sorry if my voice sounds off, this is still the same sickness, believe it or not, from before. Now, this video may come off as ranting at times, but let's try to find some answers together. That thumbnail is not clickbait, the title's not clickbait, it's feeling like Yamcha quite literally, and it feels impossible. It's relatable because I do get it, to a degree, and we're going to talk about that. One, what's relatable is I also didn't hit Masters this last split, which I'm pretty sure you might not have hit your goals as well because ranked has changed a lot. I can have lots of excuses, but the reality was that kind of makes sense with my voice that I've been sick, my day job got in the way, it's been very busy at work, ranking is slower, and it's just been pretty rough, right? Life hits. Number two, see this comment? We're gonna circle back to it again, but they're not wrong. I can be better. I can push myself to be better on this channel. I can always do better content. But also, can I be honest? That it's really hard, but also to stand out. This is just not one comment. I've already been thinking about this, the quality of the channel, but also picking up with me to help you improve as well. It's been pretty crazy. It's literally 6 years of this game, and the skill ceiling just keeps rising. There's so many questions about that. It's just like, how do I keep up? Playing for the squad versus going for a flashy clip. Also, what's relevant in the legend choice and choosing meta and then holding back because you're not playing meta. There's so many variables, but you know, before we get overwhelmed, let's just back up a little bit here. Let's prove that Apex Legends is a hard game. They've tried to improve it, we got wildcard and all that stuff, right? But here's a simple proof whenever I lay out all the stuff that you have to learn. Let's start with the very basic fundamentals. Do you know how to loot? What are the best legends? Best legend perks. Do you know all the intricate details of the game, such as like class perks, best guns to look for, memorize recoil patterns? How do you properly rotate? Memorizing the maps, know your role in the squad, know enemy roles you're facing, squad communication, and just overall game sense that can take years to develop. I mean, let's just let that sink in again. We've mentioned 6 years of playing this game, and I still struggle to teach and help focus on where your problem areas are and what's the most important fundamental. I mean, they're all important. So let's go further beyond the difficulty and start with the basic of why. The hardest part, if you learn this, really just the investment of why play this. Let's go to the next basic part. You load up the game. You're staring at the screen, playing solo versus a squad. I know you've done this. You've been on the main page because I've done it. You want to play or improve, but that decision of playing is daunting. You're just sitting there after work and you're like, you know, if it's daunting for me to play solo queue and I make content, and there's a carrot at the end, you meaning like money. Let's be honest. I could just imagine how you feel overwhelmed at the end of the day, and you ask yourself, what is that end goal? How does someone just play just casually, and do you get satisfaction of playing this after a busy day of work? I know this sounds doom and gloom. We'll kind of brighten it up here in a minute. So it might sound like I'm saying just quit, but you generally have to ask, why am I playing? Because that motivation is what helps you improve. Hopefully the answer is that you genuinely enjoy playing this game, and I know that there's the anxiety that you may enjoy it, but your anxiety might keep you off the game, where it's like, man, after a long day after work, the last thing I want to deal with is performing poorly and then getting frustrated because something happens in the game. And there's a lot of other things to be frustrated with the game. Bugs, balance, cheaters, just the list goes endlessly on, right? Now the hard part though, which I understand, is the days you choose not to play, you lose momentum. Then you get out of the habit of improving. You're not building momentum, right? Here's a really healthy response to that. And I've been trying to do it as well, but also stay with certain time constraints. So meaning the reality is you limit your game time because ranked is competitive and you're taking the game to another level and you have to ask a hard question of why. Does this lead to ALGS content or just sheer passion? And I understand that Apex rewards have to matter. They need to be better. That's also another one. They just don't necessarily have the current appeal, especially if you're hitting Masters many times. Why do it again and again and again and again, right? So again, the healthiest decision is say, just don't leave it open-ended because then you'll get frustrated when you hit that wall. Say, I'll play this for about an hour or an hour and a half. And I'll play like a couple matches and I'll warm up and just kind of vibe and let that moment of passion ride, and don't just play for open-ended and say, I'm going to play for 4 hours. I'm going to play for 6. And then you don't really know when it ends and you get off. That's probably the hardest part because there's that fine line of I love this game versus I need to know when to get off this game. And I think that's healthy with everything you probably could do in life, to be honest. You just can't have everything open-ended. You just can't keep spending endless time with your significant other. You can't just keep doing endless time on your other passion hobby. You just can't do that. It's not necessarily healthy. You got to know where the boundaries are. So let's move on from the doom and gloom. I think this is the hardest part, the mental struggle, and we're going to mention it several times. So the takeaways: limit your time, don't burn out, remember why you do this. Now, oh my God, the other struggle. Now, solo queue versus playing with a squad. Really, the only benefits of solo queuing is that you can have your own time. The squad you need to schedule as a group. The squad gives away way more flexibility to win. The squad gives more comms and can set better strategy, and they can problem solve weaknesses. Everything in reality is better playing with a squad. Playing solo across the board is just a net negative. It takes more time, it's harder. It doesn't provide flash content either, like flashy content, because you got to play for the squad at times when you do need to res, when you anchor for the team, and sometimes even as entry, people don't follow up. So maybe your clutch doesn't really matter a whole lot. You could get 2 knocks and your teammates just don't reciprocate, right? I don't necessarily have an answer quite here for this yet. I think with solo queue, you have to run meta. I have hit masters off of meta, but it's harder and it takes more time. Example, running Watson is a way harder climb versus climbing with Ashe. So in itself, that is a tip. Why are you doing this? If you love the legend, sure. Because like for me, it's for content. Choosing a role is also the hard part of Apex. So choosing why you play a legend, right? A lot of people ask, well, I don't want to play meta because I don't enjoy it. Play what you love. Know your strengths and weaknesses. I think it's really important. And you can work on your weaknesses and that can be fun, right? Here's an example. This is the next part. My strength, as an example, is playing anchor, mid, long range, support, rotation. My weakness, and I've been very transparent, is entry, because a lot of people always want to play entry back in the day, so I got used to playing the other roles. It's what I've spent the least amount of time on, but it's also not as sexy as other roles, and why in my content I obsess about wanting to improve this area literally at all times. Entry has the most control in the team for pacing though, also has the most flash for content. Now, in a future video, I want to talk about how the knock first is the biggest mistakes most teams make, especially who gets it and how it works in your role. So that is going to be a future video. I want to try to plan that for Saturday. Now, set these expectations as you grind and what your intention is, but also be flexible, especially when solo queuing. So that demand is much higher, unfortunately. Notice the biggest trend here is really mental fortitude, just as like the starting basis of this game, because there's a lot, it's overwhelming. I am confident when saying we can all grind mechanics and get better, but nothing is worse than trying to feel out a team solo than getting negative results when you played at your best and things are just not lining up. That's probably the biggest feedback I've heard from most players when they solo queue. In a squad, this does get infinitely easier if you do have friends to play with, but still, at a higher level, trust me, the pressure on your friendship does strain when playing at a higher level. My biggest advice when coaching this is have an open mind. Be open to feedback, be flexible, be okay with being wrong. No matter how much you carry, how well you did, we can always do more. That's why when you see on the live streams, I always say, I could have done this more. Like my teammates could literally do 10 damage each, and I'm like, I could have maybe res this, I could have popped a heal here, I could have done, X, Y, and Z, because you have to control the RNG. It's always easier to blame others. It really is. But taking ownership is harder, and that builds character not just for Apex, but for other games as well. A true solo queue warrior will be the most desirable player in a team because you've built the mental fortitude and you're flexible. Now let's discuss another difficult thing in Apex Legends is the fundamentals and identifying them. Apex Legends is difficult, we already talked about a lot, but I get what players need to focus on, and it's the basics. First off, can you even win your ones? Just if you were to 1v1, can you win? That's the most basic here. But there are categories: gun skill, rotation, game sense, squad communication, flexibility within your role. So what is important? Well, each of them honestly, so taking time to work on individual skill instead of trying to do everything at once is important. I'll give an example of tips to make some progress. Let's say this session you're only going to focus on rotations. Just focus on that. Lock it in as a skill set. Next play session, you're going to focus more on entry and fragging out. The next session, maybe you'll focus on just giving better communication. This goes back to the start of the video. Most people don't understand there is a skill difference between high skill lobbies versus low, where you face roll opponents. So you watching this, you also have this skill. Together though, you have to focus on one skill at a time. It doesn't mean you're a bad player at all if you're not, essentially going in and one clipping everybody. That's an amazing skill. Great for gun skill, right? which I've been thinking a ton about also. And it leads to the next point, legend choice. I play a lot of characters, Vantage, Watson, Conduit, Horizon, Loba, and of course Alter. My easiest pick is Alter here because she's meta, but is that the most entertaining? I know peeps enjoy Watson, I know that you enjoy Vantage, but they're not meta. So my choice is very different from yours. And Watson being not meta meaning like she's not the highest pick rate. I think she's really strong in certain areas. So my choice is very different from yours. My priorities are also different because you can just enjoy playing what you want, but I'm also keeping my content. You have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Play what you love and what the end goal is. Every legend can get to Masters. I promise you, I've seen it done before. But also ask the question, why do you want to get Masters or Pred? What is going to be the most fun and satisfying thing for you? And that's kind of the whole point. I'll stop here. I feel like this needs a part 2. I need feedback on this video. I kept thinking of the script and I just couldn't nail it down. Comment your thoughts. It's so important, these thoughts, and they are just not honestly talked about. I don't feel like people are talking a lot about it, but we're all experiencing it. I know pros feel it, I know casuals feel it, but we all stay quiet on this subject about the difficulty and the walls you hit. And I feel like just by talking about the motivation to push, the fundamentals, asking the why, legend picks, why you do it, this video just proves that there's so much to discuss. It's longer than I had even anticipated. When I first scripted this out, this was supposed to be 5 minutes long. It is like 12 minutes long now, and it's crazy. It's hard, and this video barely scratches the surface of why. So comment your thoughts if you got to the end of this video, and let me know, and I'd like to structure this better, and maybe I could create this as a series that leads into strong tips of what you're looking for. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys all in the next one.